It's Only Sport with Martin Devlin on the platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected.
Greg Rust is a long-time motorsport journalist and presenter, and we welcome you onto the show, mate. Thanks so much for joining us.
Martin, nice to talk to you.
Well, Sandown this weekend, mate. We're not far away from Bathurst. It's been, I reckon, a brilliant Supercars season so far, and I say that just as a neutral bloke who watches it because we've had so many different winners, which just adds so much more to the puzzle and the pie.
I reckon you're absolutely right, and there's been a few aspects to the stories, if you like, that we perhaps at the beginning of the season didn't think would happen. I think a few people thought there might have been a transition or a settling in period for Will Brown at Red Bull. He's been absolutely dynamite. The way that Walkinshaw Andretti United have become more of a regular force. There was probably around the Perth and the Darwin rounds a bit of a question mark over their kind of soft tyre performance. But Chaz Moss is absolutely in the mix, and then you can add a few others that have kind of peppered the winners or podium list. And you're absolutely right; it's made for a fantastic year so far. And we move now, as you detail, into the big races. So milestone weekend for the Sandown 500. Bathurst just around the corner, and then Gold Coast and Adelaide. It's going to be a ripping end of the year.
I look at this pairing of Brock Feeney and Jamie Whincup, who won it last year. I mean, this is Jagger and Richards, isn't it? In a car.
I mean, he is, when you speak with Jamie, he's reinvigorated. I mean, he clearly still gets a massive buzz from driving, but he's been immersed in the management structure and running Triple Eight as an organisation now for a number of years, and he's no stranger to business, obviously. But we know what he's achieved over time in Supercars. But I've just not heard him, Martin, speak like this for a little while.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Yeah.
He's really fired up about getting back behind the wheel again, which is terrific.
So, if those two are, Federer teamed with Nadal, so who else is there of their ilk?
Well, I mean, you'd have to argue that the sister car with Will Brown and Scott Pye is in equally,
good hands. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Scott might have been with teams in recent years that wouldn't necessarily have the wherewithal of a Triple Eight. But when you talk with him as well, and to be a part of an organisation like that, to be a cog in that machine, he's relishing that chance. And as we detailed at the top of the call, Will's in fantastic form there. So I think they're worth watching for sure. Walkinshaw, as we've talked about, there's been a bit of an emergence as well at Tickford Racing. So the downsize over summer. Back to two cars, the kind of the condensing or the realignment, if you like, that's working for those guys. So they're starting to show the kind of pace that we should have been seeing from them on a more regular basis. So I'm often with James Moffat when he's racing in Trans Ams in Australia, and he's a great set of hands to be paired with Cam Waters. So there's another. I mean, I calling them a dark horse, Martin, is actually wrong.
Yeah,
I actually think they're strong. They're stronger than that. So there's another combo worth watching.
Greg Rust is with us. We've got Sandown 500 this weekend. The Gen 3 cars, they raced twice there last year. So a couple of parts to this question. How did they perform then? And it's a quick circuit. So, just putting those cars on this circuit.
A lot of learnings in the space of 12 months for everybody. So I think... as is often the case when you bring in a new regulation or new formula, some get up to speed with them sooner than others. They're very different to the previous iteration of Supercars. So I think you'll probably see a bit of a closer contest here and a greater reliance on things that might break the rhythm. So someone looking for something strategically that might work in their favour. I haven't looked at the weather forecast. Often in Melbourne at this time of the year, you can get a shower. It can be a little bit on the colder side and so on. So Sandown might and has done over the years throw a little bit of that into the mix as well. So and it's just the most beautiful way to build up to the Bathurst 1000. It becomes this almost a form guide in some respects, but a very prestigious race in its own right. To win Sandown's a pretty cool thing.
I kind of call it Queens before Wimbledon, if you can kind of make that comparison. The
Nice
other thing
analogy.
is, Greg, it's tempting to isolate and separate these because they're endurance, but obviously, these points still go towards the championship and everything else. So let's just blend those two. How much is it going to affect the race for those titles? Or do the drivers look at it and think, okay, I may not win the championship, but by God, if I get my name on this one, I get my name in Bathurst. Well, that's immortality in itself.
Your question is really valid for me because of the way that we've seen the likes of a Chaz Mostert come into the mix, right? And we've outlined how many races are left in this series. So if you're a Will Brown, and you've got a really good partner in Scott Pye, the thought of winning the 500 is a huge carrot, a huge thing. But maybe at some point in the latter part of the race, certainly not the early phase, but in the latter part of the race, maybe there will be that little thing in the back of the mind or a conversation around, do we settle for a result here,
right.
a podium or whatever, that just might preserve that and ensure that the bigger prize. But at a Bathurst, maybe less so. The thought of winning Bathurst in everyone's mind somehow seems to override that. So, but at Sandown, I think you might get a little bit of that at this stage of the championship creep in.
Talk to us about Matt Payne, the Kiwi boy, who's obviously partnered with Garth Tander. And again, I've got two parts of this. I just want your thoughts on Matt Payne. And then when I look at Tander, what just blows me away, mate, is that there he is. He's strolling all around the course and he's talking about the course. And then I see Jamie Whincup, of course, in his management role. And then these guys get back in the cars. My mind just goes all over the place with that. Hell, you're still good enough to get back in, and you still believe in yourself enough to get back in. So save that part for second, but talk about Matt Payne first. But then just explain that to me, because I just find it so weird whenever I see Garth wandering the track with a microphone and then he's behind the wheel.
So Garth was a guest on my podcast only in the past few weeks, and we've talked about a lot of the subject matter that you're going to here. So firstly, on Matt Payne, immensely talented as a racer, but what we've loved seeing this year from him is the way that he's applied himself to become the all-round racer outside the car. He knows now that because it's an elite sport, because he's playing at a level now that is kind of well above anything he's done prior, what you've got to do outside a car as a disciplined athlete to ensure that when you get in the car, you can deliver is something that he's really worked very, very and continues to work very hard on. He's got a great understanding of that now, right? And with Garth, I'm glad you brought up the parallel almost with Jamie. He is providing to that Penrite team, that Grove Racing organisation, some very, very good insights in all areas of the business that have helped shape it, helped it grow, and it's another emerging force. So as a driver, he's lost nothing. He is the perfect combination for Matt. Matt at this stage of his career, and you watch them go this weekend and at Bathurst. They will we didn't talk about them before when you asked to outline a couple of contenders, if you will. They're 100% in that.
It's Only Sport with Martin Devlin on the platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected.